Howdy folks, my name is Janaki.
And this is Madame Bathsheba.
And together we are Catomancy Tarot. Welcome. Today we are continuing with my top 10 Oracle decks of all time. This is really exciting. It's also, I found it to be like a lot trickier than the top 10 tarot that I recently did. Partially because like with tarot decks, the system is great already. All tarot decks are just kind of like repetitions on a theme that, like, the structure of tarot is what really drives it all and what really works. And with oracle decks, you don't have that same structure, so they're not always like gonna be good regardless, if that makes any sense. With oracle decks, artists have kind of like free range, and I think that gives freedom to kind of like really open things up. But I think I think it's a lot harder to make a really good oracle deck than it is to make a really good tarot deck. Um, those are just my thoughts. Those are just my thoughts. And today I'm going to walk you through 10 of my all-time favorites, and I'm also going to talk to you about what, for me, what elements I think come together to make a really good oracle deck. And as I did with my top 10 tarot, I'm also going to do a runners up video. So if you're like what you see here, stay tuned for a little bit extra. So here we go. Let me take you through my top 10 Oracle decks of all time.
All right, so here we go. First off, I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of like the components of like what makes an oracle deck good. I think first of all, there's the artwork. And then there's also the titles. There's a few oracle decks that don't have titles and invite you to just kind of explore the artwork. But I would say the majority of oracle decks have titles. And then there's also usually a guidebook. So those are the three components. And some of these decks I'm going to show you have like great artwork. Some of them I love the guidebooks, and some of them have like really interesting and innovative titles. And some, rarely, you actually get decks that like hit it out of the park with all three, and I feel like that's really hard to do. Um, and usually I feel like with most Oracle decks, it feels like sometimes the titles do more work than the artwork, or sometimes you have no idea what's going on without using the guidebook, or sometimes the images are just so beautiful, but like the words don't feel like they match at all. And so for some of those reasons, I think it's really tricky to kind of nail it with an oracle deck. And I'm someone who I don't. I mean, this is a disclaimer. I don't love most mass market oracle decks. I have a hard time. Sometimes, I don't know, to me, they can feel a little bit repetitive. I don't love the super, um, you know, the oracly oracle decks, the very, I don't know, sometimes they feel cheesy to me, or they don't feel right. So the decks I'm going to show you today, surprise, surprise, 5 of them are collage decks, because I love collage. Um, and the rest are a combination of like independent, and there's like a couple mass market in here. So yeah, let's get started. And I'm gonna start off by showing you my favorite oracle deck of all time. But this first one is out of print, unfortunately. It's the only oracle deck that I'm showing you that is going to be out of print. But it's my favorite. It's the Road to Nowhere Oracle deck by Mary Evans. It was published in 2017. I think I first got it in 2018. And it's my favorite Oracle deck of all time. And Mary Evans, you can check out, she's got a lot of other decks, including other Oracle decks. But this is my favorite. And like the quilted backs are just like so comforting to me. And this is an example of like a deck that I think the image works really well with the title. like they feel kind of balanced between the two. Like if you just if you only had this image to work with, you would kind of get the kind of reflective, like self, getting in touch with the self aspect, looking into a mirror. And so reconnection actually, it does something to the way you see the image, but even if you didn't have the title, it's kind of an image that would spark, spark something in you. And I I like titles that are doing something a little bit different. I like these big, the big borders. It just feels like uh, the coziest oracle deck. Sometimes I feel like we can reach for oracle decks when tarot is feeling a little bit too. We all have those times when we're feeling like really sensitive. When like if you because sometimes you will pull those tarot cards where you're like, I'm having a bad day, and then you pull you know the Three of Swords, the Tower, and uh the Death card, and you're like, yeah, I know, but that doesn't. Sometimes you just need to be like, uh you need a little bit more of a tender hand, and I think that's when oracle decks can often come in, which isn't to say that they can't like get you good, but it's just to say that sometimes you need something that's going to be a little bit more gentle. And I just love this deck so much. And it goes, I'm someone who, if you're new to my channel, I'm a huge lover of collage decks. And so you'll see a lot of collage decks right up front here. I love this one, In Dreams. I think it's so beautiful. But I a lot of my favorite decks uh they play nicely with each other, because if we're all hanging out in collage land, it turns out that like everyone kind of plays well with each other, which I really enjoy. Send a Signal. Yeah, I really love this one. And if you're I know it's a bummer. I don't know. I've reached out to her to kind of ask, because I know she has a lot of other decks in print, and I was unable to kind of like find out why she decided not to offer this one anymore. So if you do know why, I'm curious. I would like to know. But as an alternative, this if you're looking for something with a similar feel, but that's actually still in print, I would suggest Runners of the Sun, which is by Amelia Rose. It's another indie collage deck that kind of like has a little bit of a similar vibe. I think these decks are kind of like in conversation with one another. So if you're bummed, can't find this, I think this is like a great little alternative. So the next deck that's on my top 10 list is a little bit of an ancestor to Road to Nowhere. I read in an interview with Mary Evans that this deck, which is the Tantric Deini Oracle, which was first published in the 70s, I believe, by Penny Slinger, was a huge inspiration. And so the copy I have, I've trimmed, usually there's like a white border, and I've actually trimmed the titles off. I am trying to get another version of this deck that does have the titles on there. But this is a deck that I think has really, really playful titles, and that's kind of a huge part of the fun of this one. So I'll do my best. I'll do my best. So we've got Soma, we've got the wish-fulfilling gem, A Way Through. This one, not so fun. This is the Tower card, so this is the Holocaust card. We've got This is the card that's the Devil card. So it plays off of a tarot structure, and then it kind of so the major arcana kind of like do feel like renamed majors in a certain way, but once you get to the minors, you can kind of see the elemental energies. But I'm not someone who ever really found a one-for-one correspondence with like each of the archetypes within the minors. So for me, what I've done is like all I really needed to care about was this card is in the air suit. This is the flying carpet, right? So it's got I just that's my shorthand that I use. This is amusement. Man, I was really hoping to get a titled version to show you guys so you can see what I'm talking about. But there's something about like there's a real irreverence to a lot of these images that I think is really interesting. And she's like it's not a deck where, and this is also a deck that the guidebook isn't super useful. I've never spoken to anyone who is like, yeah, the guidebook made so much sense. So with this one, you kind of do have to like rely on the titles and images to get you there. But this is kind of one of the very first collage oracle decks I think out there, and so it's kind of in this tradition of collage oracles. And I took the borders off because I find this one without the titles and without the borders to go really well with a deck like the Ritual Tarot, which is another collage titleless borderless deck. So I was using these together for a really long time. We've got Castles in the Sky. We've got, I think, Horsing Around. We've got the Mercury. This one, I think, is Dangerous Pussy, right? I really hope I'm not making that up. So that is the Tantric Deini Oracle. Next up, we've also got Madame Bathsheba, who heard me talking about all of these things and had to come hang out. So the next deck I'm going to show you is another collage oracle, and this one is this is a prototype that I have here. This is When Olga Speaks by Sasha Lopez. And so this is a deck that is hopefully going to be kickstarted soon. And so this is I'm so sorry, Madame. I will have to ask you to vacate the premises. I'm so sorry. This is a deck that I think does a really great job at where there's that great balance again between the images doing something, like if you only had this image, and then you would still be able to kind of like guess at the meaning. Like you have a figure in a circle of figures who's kind of reading, who's kind of lit up, and you've got kind of like the pink eye from above, so it feels like, you know, whatever he's reading, whatever he's saying, this kind of light is also kind of like light coming from this other source with like people gathered around. And then when you get the title, The Teacher, that all kind of makes sense. So I think it's an example of a deck that does a really excellent job where the images themselves are really useful in readings. The titles kind of complement and bring something else out, but one or the other doesn't feel kind of like super overbalanced. So we have Unconscious Reality, The Hard Choice, Offering, and this is a deck that she created in honor of her grandmother. so it feels kind of like an ancestral deck. I believe the source material was like 60s and 70s Life magazines, and there's something just like really vivid and kind of like I don't know. It just really strikes a chord, and I think it's such a good oracle deck, and I can't wait for like the final version, because she's also written a guidebook that I haven't had a chance to kind of see yet. So I've been working with this prototype, and I really love it, and I'm even more excited to kind of like read her words as well. So in that way, I'm pretty sure this deck is going to be that kind of like triple threat, right? And the way this deck is organized is you have a number of suits which are color coded, and you have an archetypical figure like the strategist or the teacher, and then all of the cards in that kind of suit are kind of the different lessons from the strategist or from the ally, which I think is a fun way to kind of give the deck some kind of structure. So yeah, this is When Olga Speaks. Stay tuned to hear about when this one is going to go live, and I hope it does so well. The next deck I want to talk about is actually I think this is the most recent oracle deck that's on the list today. And usually, I feel like if I just get a deck, I'm usually kind of obsessed with it for a little while. But I try and kind of like, will it make the all-time favorites? I'm not so sure. But with this one, I had a really unique little bit of a journey with this one, and I heavily modded this deck. So this is Amy Zerner and Monty Farber's Creativity Oracle. And so the way the deck originally came, let's see here. So originally, the backs of the card is where you would find the title along with their little message. And so the fronts of the card were titleless. And for me, this was a deck where the keywords they chose for a lot of these images, I just really didn't resonate with. They were kind of very, almost a little bit too simple. And I didn't always, for instance, see, I would look at this image and be like, I'm really not getting procrastination from that. And the images were like so beautiful. And so this is a deck for me where I love the images so much, but the titles and the guidebook just really wasn't working for me. And instead of kind of giving up, I gave this deck a total a total makeover. So first, what I did is I covered up the backs with contact paper, and then I stamped a lace doily in gold on the backs of all of them, because this is like a fabric collage. If you're familiar with Amy's artwork, this is the kind of thing that she does. And I wrote my own titles. So we just saw this from the guidebook. This was originally Procrastination. And then in gold, I just wrote Internal Landscape instead. Here we have Post Pupa. You just fresh out of the chrysalis. This is Dalliance, Ready and Rearing, Pollination. This is Sub Rosa. So I wrote like I went through and kind of gave all of these cards names, and like here we have Totally Drained, and it was just a really fun experience for me. So if you have a deck that you, I don't know, love the artwork of, but like have a hard time connecting with, um, it's I wouldn't, I've seen other people do it on here on YouTube, and I was always so inspired. And I didn't really, this was the first deck that I had that I thought was like a really good candidate for that, all of that. So if you're curious and you want to see a walkthrough of how I've the names and my process, I have a full modification video that I can link below. But it was just such a like a rewarding process. And now I have a deck that I really love and that does resonate with me, because I am so picky. I am so picky when it comes to oracle decks. So I had a really fun time with this one. All right. So the next deck I have is, so last year I kind of like I had a series of videos where I talked about trying to go on an oracle quest, where I'm just like trying to, because I'm in my collection, there's a huge imbalance. Like I have way more tarot decks than I do oracle decks. So last year I really tried to like seek out oracle decks that would like fit with my practice. And one of the decks that I picked up last year that has made it to this all-time faves list is, it's a indie deck, but it's a mass market kind of vibe and price. And this is the Abaton Keys by Patty Allen. You can find this deck on her website. And this is a dream healing oracle deck. So this is another deck that I did a big modification on. So originally the backs had kind of this image and the text, and I just didn't feel it matched. This is a deck that's drawing on the tradition of like Greek sleep temples. So I rebacked it in this pink marble, and I absolutely love the way it came out, and I think it matches the sort of like pastel borders of it all a lot better. So one of the things I was kind of really searching for is to find like an oracle deck that is like you know, you're kind of, this is my favorite version of what you might call like a cheesy oracle deck that has like mass market oracle vibes, but that's still, I can still like, you know, it doesn't have all of the super kind of like star seedy, like super new age, like all of like, it's still, I can still kind of like appreciate the messages that it has going on. And, you know, some of the titles are kind of very standard. We have like messages, pleasure, soul, cure. So they're a little bit, the titles are kind of a little bit more classic of what you would expect. But I really love the images. And for me, I actually love this little guidebook. This little guidebook is actually like, it, I wasn't expecting much of anything, but I really love it. It has 4 suits, and each of the suits, it'll give you a little bit about the ancient world. So it's, you know, in the suit of drama, it'll give you, let's see here, if we can just take a look at this one. So for 16, we get like an ancient Greek word here, which is parody. So it talks about the role of that in like ancient Greek tragedy, and then it gives you a little bit of a message. And so this is a really fun deck to use like for dream work, or just for general readings. Like it feels really cozy. I think the artwork is like really fun. And this is my favorite kind of oracle deck in this genre. And it's collage, so it feels like it does go really well with my ecosystem of all of my favorite collage friends. So that is the Abaton Keys Oracle, and I really can't recommend this one a lot enough. I think this one, it also would like appeal to like a broad array of folks. So yeah, I like this one a lot. So that is the Abaton Keys by Patty Allen. And also, if you're new here, I also have an Etsy shop where I make and offer oracle and tarot bags that I make. So if you like the pouches you've seen so far, check out my Etsy shop. There'll be a link below. So now we're moving away from collage. So here we go. The next one is one of those oracle decks that the guidebook does the most work, at least for me, and that's the Dirt Gems. So I have, this is the first edition indie. This is now mass market, and I'm really tempted. I think I might just like at some point get the new mass market version, just because this original indie box is so bad. There's always cards left that you can't really get out. It's like one of those weird like foldy boxes. And these were the original backs, and I edged them fun so that the stripes look like they're kind of going off the back of the deck, and I love the way it turned out. But this is a deck where it's a plant ally deck, and I'm someone who likes to stroll in nature, but doesn't. I don't know my dogwood from my other woods. I'm not a plant identifying, I don't really have a green thumb. So for those folks who like already have a strong association with, plants and the world of plant magic, I think for some folks the attributions can feel a little bit discordant. So since I don't have any of that, I really have to rely on the guidebook. So some people would prefer like to have a keyword on the card to go along with the image. I love the images. I think they're so beautiful. I think they're very vibey, and I think they're really warm and inviting. But I actually, I like sometimes when you're doing a big reading, especially when you're reading for other people, I think there's this attitude that you don't really want to have to like pull out a guidebook and like read to people while you're doing a reading for them. I think especially in like a professional reading context, right? There's that idea of like you have to at some point be able to go off book. But when I'm doing readings for myself, sometimes I need to go on book. Like sometimes when you're doing readings for yourself, sometimes it's nice to have a guidebook tell you what's going on instead of relying solely on your own interpretations. So sometimes I like to get out a guidebook and like read a big passage. So if we take a look at the guidebook for a sec, you actually get quite a few words, and you also get a little subtitle, and what I find, I just really like this guidebook. I like the writing, so for me that's why this deck makes the top, is because this is the guidebook that I feel like has made me cry the most, but like in a good way. I feel like a lot of new agey oracle decks they're not always like trauma informed. Sometimes they're just like, all you got to do is raise your vibration, yo. And that's just not it. Like, that's not what I'm interested in. Like, that's not what I need. And so instead, what this one offers, it's kind of like poetically written, and it offers kind of different, like the text itself feels like a soothing remedy. And it's always for me hit the spot. Like I've always found something to be like really soothing or really healing. Like this is a great deck for like self-soothing, I would say. And I really like it for that reason. Like here we go. Peppermint is a calm crystal lagoon. Peppermint can dispel the mental chatter that prevents us from being present. They can allow the mind to be cool and clear. Peppermint offers perspective on how we see ourselves and how we engage with the world, making us a way through the many layers of selves that we build stories around. If you are feeling queasy about where you find yourself, if you feel unsure or stuck, call on peppermint to be the settling of a nervous stomach, the ice on your neck, the soothing of a flustered and overtired babe. Like it's really gentle, it's really tender. I'm sure everyone already knows about this one. And I think the problem most people have with it is that subtitle isn't on the cards itself. But like for a deck like this, I really don't mind relying on the guidebook, because like the guidebook is what makes this deck like really really work for me. And like I wouldn't be able to like look at borage and then and know all those things. So that's why this one has made my top list. It's because like the guidebook does a lot of the work. The next deck I'm going to show you is one that I got for myself early this year, and this is called Mother Witch by Natasha Khan, who's from Bat for Lashes. If you're in the UK, I think you can pick this deck up in stores around London, or you can order it from her website. If you're in the US or elsewhere, shipping from her website is like very expensive. So I think House Witch in Salem in the US is stocking it with shipping that's a little bit cheaper. But yeah, this was I think this is my most expensive oracle deck that I'm showing you today. And it's only 44 cards, which I don't that's not the magic number for me. I like an oracle deck with more cards. 52 is a good number. The creativity oracle, I took a couple cards out of it and it's still 77 cards. So like I don't love that. I wish there was kind of more cards, but this is an oracle deck that has really grown on me. I hadn't seen things that were quite like it. And it's got this like monochromatic, we've got this array of colors and then this just like black line drawing on top. And so this is another oracle deck that the images do a lot. And then the titles are kind of left field. Queen of the Harvest, we kind of guess. We can understand like nourishing feast. That also makes a lot of sense. We've got, and then sometimes we get something like Tangled Tower or the Winged Aunties, where we're just like, I'm not really sure what that's about. And then so this is an oracle deck that I also find that I often have to like rely on the guidebook to kind of like I get major vibes from a card, but then you're just like, what's up with these ladies? Like, what do they got going on? And then she gives you some like 3 keywords. She gives you kind of like a description of the image. She gives you a potion, which is kind of like the, it's kind of like a card description and then kind of like a divinatory meaning. And then a ritual, which is like a kind of a suggestion towards a practice. And then lastly, an oracle where she's like giving you like examples of songs or movies or things to kind of like listen to kind of sort things out. So I wasn't, I think my initial reaction was like, there was so many cards in here that I was like, I really have no idea what to do with this. And so when you have a deck like that, you really need a guidebook that's going to get you the rest of the way there. And so at first I was a little uncertain about the guidebook, but I'm a convert. Like, I'm a fan. And I do like the tone of the deck. There's like, it's very whimsical. And it's got this kind of like soft girl vibes that I really enjoy. We have Sirens of the Ether, Tornado Girl, the Oyster Queen, Knight of Shimmering Armor, Vampire Desire, which is one of my favorite cards in the deck. We have Childhood, Garden Jester, Stillness, Love a Bubble Bath. I'm here for it. So yeah, it's definitely got its own kind of like color scheme, and I really like it. And it pairs well with kind of like more illustrative type decks or black and white decks, or kind of those kind of like doodle decks, if you will. And this was kind of a surprise, but like I've been really loving this one, so this has been on my list. So that was a bit of a newer deck. Now I'm going to show you a deck that I actually haven't used in quite some time, but I used it a lot a couple years back, and I think it just has to like be on this list because it like helped me make a significant like shift. It helped me discover like one of my using this deck along with like Marseille decks unlocked like some creativity, and it like I came up with some new like developed. It was the first time like I really developed my own spreads, and that's the Living Altar Oracle. It's a deck made by some like queer radical witches in the Pacific Northwest. And this is a deck that it's kind of in 2 parts. So you'll see here that I actually have the deck divided up. So we've got all of the regular cards, and then at the back we have these spell cards, which I think you can use for altar work. But I never really read with them. And there's actually, there's not that many. And most of the deck is kind of like more regular cards. So this is a big deck. Let's see who I have around who's like, I'm pretty sure Dirt Gems is a standard tarot size, right? So they're quite large. I think they're larger even than like this is When Olga Speaks, which is kind of like more of a standard oracle size. And these are kind of lino cut plus mixed media. And the way this the organizing principle of this oracle deck is kind of the wheel of the year. So I'm not, I follow and I feel like I'm tapped into this world in which I kind of know where we are and what's going on, but and I think there's a lot of different versions of the kind of the witch's wheel of the year. but it's a fun organizing principle. So you'll have like your elemental cards, you'll have your seasonal cards, you have your like time of day cards, you have the moon cards. And so I feel like there's like most of the oracle decks I've shown you so far are kind of like general readers where they can like read to any kind of situation. But now we're getting into some of the more like specialized or oracle decks that have like one specific purpose. And so this deck is really seems to be about like specific times. Like this is a deck that's all about like cycles and just like cyclical time, right? And so this is a deck that sometimes you pull a card just to see like where you at in a cycle, like and especially reading with I love using this deck with Marseille because Marseille also feels like tarot kind of boiled down to its like simplest form. In which case, to me, it just feels like tarot is kind of like all about these different cycles from like aces to tens to these like moments of beginnings and endings. And so I really like the kind of like the just like seeing where you at in space and time. And I'm probably gonna leave this deck out after I made this video because I actually haven't used it quite in a hot minute. But it is a really fun one. And it's like I've done a lot of readings for a lot of people with this deck and had some like really good clear results. And the guidebook is another one that I think does some. It's well written, so you'll have kind of like the correspondences. You'll have a spell and then some guiding messages, and it's kind of it has a very distinctive voice. This deck, it's which is very fun. So that is the Living Altar Oracle deck. So the next decks I'm going to show you, I think I'm cheating. I think I'm cheating with these next ones because I'm counting it as one, but it's actually more than one. So stay with me. So the next one I'm going to show you are the Broccoli magazine decks. And there's a series, currently there's 4. I only have 3 of them. I'm waiting, I think I'm going to wait till the spring to get the flower one. But these very much feel very seasonal to me. And there's a number of like different decks that are oracle decks that are in a series that have some kind of like seasonality built into them. I think the most popular ones are like the Seasons of the Witch decks, which aren't my vibe, but I think these do kind of a similar thing, where for me, you've got the Seashell Oracle, very summer, Mushroom Oracle, very fall, the Flower Oracle, very spring, and the Crystal Oracle has these like wonderful like jewel tones that feel very, I don't know, maybe more of a rock, I don't know, maybe more of a winter vibe. And so maybe that's cheating. I think of the 3, I think the Seashell Oracle might still be my favorite, followed by this one, which is the most recent release. This one you can really tell is their like first one, and they're working through a lot of things, and you can really see how they've like taken what they learned from this one and like implemented it in the others. But this is, I will say that for me, it's this is a deck that does feel a little bit unbalanced in terms of like the images are so beautiful. Let's take a look Let's take a look at the Crystal Oracle, because I think you guys have probably seen the mushroom one a lot. So this is like the images themselves, I think, are really, really beautiful. And sometimes the keywords kind of make intuitive sense. Like for Micah, we have sparkle, fragility, hope. But then sometimes we get keywords here that are just really at odds with each other. We've got metaphor, camouflage, and nourishment, which just feel really, they're just doing too many different things to be really useful. So, like, this is definitely a series of decks that really provide seasonal vibes above all else. But they're so beautiful that they've made my top, even though the guidebooks, by and large, I wish that they offered a little bit more, or it seems like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like, for some oracle decks, it really feels like the authors have really thought through how these cards are going to be used for divination. And with these decks, it feels like people who write magazines tried to write an oracle guidebook and aren't really aware of what makes, like, when you're in a reading, what is the information that is actually useful at the time. I don't know if that makes sense, or if that's a little bit harsh, perhaps. So let's see. Let's look at this this dinosaur one. Let's see if we can get an example here. We're in the pink section. So, surprise, rumination, acceptance, all very different words. The discovery of a gastrolith starts with a mystery, a polished stone that doesn't match its geological surroundings. This anomaly is a gizzard stone, a rock that dinosaurs swallowed to grind up vegetation in their stomach since they lacked the proper teeth. When your truth is hard to swallow, turn it over in your mind until acceptance tumbles it smooth. So, like, I like the rock facts, love some rock facts into it, but then it feels like they usually have like a question or something in italics at the end that is kind of a little bit left field, and then you're like, okay, but where was, like, from anything, if that we get rumination, like, it's, you can kind of see the, like, in order to make sense of these keywords, you kind of have to read this thing, and oftentimes this thing is based off of like one interesting fact about the thing, and not kind of, I think for folks who have an association with like a lot of gemstones or flowers or seashells already, I think the titles are going to be like a huge mismatch. So this is one where I, part of why it's my, like, they, even though I have these, you know, a little bit of wariness around the kind of the limitations of the guidebook and the keywords, the images are just like so beautiful, and they go really well with my favorite, just like the borders and the type of collage goes really well with the Spolia tarot, which is my favorite tarot deck of all time. So having these different decks that match so well, it feels like it's opened up that deck in a new way for me, because it's like, you know, Spolia, but make it fall, you know? So for me, that's why they've still managed to kind of like steal a spot, just because they are, the artwork is really beautiful. I just wish there was a little bit more of a an editing round with the guidebooks, from people who actually use decks a lot, if that makes sense. All right. So the next Oracle deck is actually the last on this list. And I really hemmed and hawed about which deck would take this last spot because it's hard. It's hard to pick. And I decided to go with this one, even though I don't do a ton of readings with it. But I really appreciate it for what it is. And so this is the Book of Doors. So I feel like in my top 10 so far, we've had some good general readers. We've had some kind of more like theme decks. We've got like the plant decks. We've got the decks that help you get in touch with different parts of the natural world. A deck for dream work. Decks that do depart from just decks that are good for general readings. And so there's this whole genre of oracle decks that are all about kind of getting in touch with a specific pantheon of beings out there, or groups of beings. I'm not a big fan of the kind of like the super duper kind of multicultural oracle decks where you get one card, every people in history gets to represent one god or goddess, and it's a deck. To me, it just feels like really decontextualizing, and I'm not a big fan of those. I would rather have like a deck that kind of goes hard within a specific tradition. And there's many great examples of this. If you watched Thea from Garden God and Goddess Tarot's top 5 oracle decks, like her Hellenic Oracle is like a wonderful example of that. So for me, I've always been like an Egypt nerd, and then I got an opportunity to kind of like go on an occult tour of Egypt, and we were kind of given instruction in this oracle deck ahead of time. And this is a guidebook that goes pretty hard, and it's talking about the Egyptian pantheon, but within the context of Hermeticism. And I really appreciate how the deck is constructed, and the type of kind of stuff that you. It's a huge deep dive, and it's kind of a hard deck to kind of like just pick up and start reading with, because it has a very specific system, and it's fun. So this is one of the only decks in my collection that I've actually never shuffled. So you keep it in order. You keep the whole deck in order, and then to draw a card, you've got this magic square of 8. So you'll roll a card for the family. So we've got the 6th family, which is the family of Neph. And then you'll roll again, and then 2. So we've got Renenet. And that's how you figure out who's coming along. Or, okay, let's see here. Here we go. And so that's how you would pull a card. But I just really appreciate the artwork. I think the artwork is really well done, and I really like the depth offered by this oracle deck, and it's got like very specific types of readings you can do. Like this figure, but it's very involved, and like you can see that I've like scribbled notes on it to try and like figure out, okay, what's going on where, and how are we getting into this. But it's always like it's always a bit of an experience, which I really like. Like if you're trying to relate to some like I just like how involved of a process it is. I think one of the things that, you know, with Oracle decks, it just makes it so easy to just like draw a card. So to have an Oracle deck where it's like, hold up, no, we got to do a whole thing here. We're not, you know, it's not just like pick a card, get a message. It's like it's a process. You kind of have to understand these guys in context of their families and where they're kind of placed and how they're relating to one another. So for all of that, I appreciate how in depth this one really goes, and I think it's a good example of uh, of an oracle deck that takes a big swing at like really exploring like one particular tradition, and I think that way you get way more context and a lot better understanding of like how these folks kind of relate to one another on their own terms rather than this kind of like radically decontextualized deck of cards that you get sometimes. So there we go. That was my top 10. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you have, stick around. My next video are going to be 5 runners up that didn't quite make my top 10. So I'll see you guys all next time. Bye for now.